So let's get going with questions. Andy and Lori asked, as a real love coach, I've encountered many clients, male and female, whose partners want nothing to do with real love. First, let's deal with that before we get going. Why would that be? You got two people who are clicking along. And by the way, Martha here is starting a question, so go ahead and finish your question. We'll get to your question. Don't worry about that. Why would one partner be investigating real love and be learning something that's obviously life-saving, and why would the other partner resist? Well, actually, duh. I mean, why would two people got together in the first place? Because they were attracted to each other over an abundance of imitation love. They were attracted to each other because there was a compatible interest in imitation love and an adequate trade, not only in amount of imitation love, but it was a mesh of types of imitation love. You find somebody who trades in a variety of imitation love that you're familiar with. So people have to come up with just the right combination of the right praise, power, pleasure, safety. It's just the right combination, and you go, I like that. That's it. That's what I like. And we fall in love with that. So the right combination, the right amount, and it's the pot of gold. So we fall in love with that, we do okay with that, and even after it wears off, still, it's the familiarity of that right blend that we can live with. Then, they come along and they say, I've decided to change my life. I'm going to live my life according to the principles of real love instead. I'm not going to trade in imitation love anymore. Are you kidding me? That's very disturbing. So, if you've been trading imitation love all of your life, and then one partner says, I'm not going to do that anymore, even though real love is far better than imitation love, if all you've ever been used to all your life is imitation, and your partner says, I'm going to take that away from you, that would just scare you to death. And not only be frightening, but would seem like an absolute betrayal. Because essentially, you've established a contract with your partner. In the beginning, although you don't realize it, with your partner, you've said, I'll give you this much imitation love, and your partner says, I'll give you this much imitation love, and you both come along, and you sign the contract. And when your partner says, no, I'm going to do real love, your partner says, I'm going to tear up the contract. And let me tell you, most people are not happy with that arrangement. So it's very understandable that when one partner comes along and says, I'm going to investigate real love, it's actually the norm that the other partner is not interested in investigating real love. So it should not be a surprise. Then the question continues. So I've encountered many clients whose partners want nothing to do with real love or coaching, and at times actively resist being involved in the changes my clients wish to make in their lives. What advice do you have for people who find their partners resisting or even attacking them in their efforts to learn how to love unconditionally? Well, the first piece of advice is to understand what I just said, and that is, why would they resist? They would resist because, in the first place, if you've decided that you want to investigate real love in your life, to at least understand that you've screwed things up. You're the one changing the contract, and even though you're trying to change things for the better, your partner doesn't get that. Second, if your partner has never seen real love in his life, we'll assume you're a woman, I don't know, for fun, because I'm tired of saying his or her. If your partner has never seen real love in his life, and you come along and you say, well, I'm going to change things and I'm going to bring real love into your life, why should he believe you? He's never seen it. So you come along and say, I'm going to bring real love. You just as well say, I'm going to hit you with a bag of concrete. He has no idea what you're talking about. None. You're speaking in a foreign tongue. So there's no sense yakking about it anymore, or talking about it anymore, or trying to prove that you're going to do something. There's only one solution here, and that is what? Do it. No sense trying to prove it. You're going to have to become loving. The worst thing you can do is to say, well, this is something you need to do. Now, there's a dumb approach. Or to say, well, I'm going to do it, you should too. How can you claim to be doing something unconditionally and then saying, well, and you have to do it too? That's the antithesis of unconditional love. So you say, no problem. You don't have to do spit. You don't have to do anything. I'm the one who's been wrong here. You don't need to talk about their problems. I have not been unconditionally loving. You're going to have your partner's attention now. So what you do is you tell your client, you emphasize to their partner, I have not been loving. I am going to learn how to love you better. It's my problem, and just let me learn how to be a more loving partner. Most partners will listen to that. Most partners love to hear I'm wrong. And as you become a more loving partner and you bring more unconditional love into the relationship, very few partners resist being loved. What they resist is being told what they should do. And unfortunately, many people do exactly that early in their study of real love. The primary reason that most people bring self-help books of any kind into a relationship is to show their partner how they should change. So don't do that. Don't use real love as a weapon, which is what many people do early in their study of real love. They bring this book home and go, oh, honey, look at this. Here's what you do. Well, good luck with that approach, sweetie. I mean, with that approach, you probably do deserve to be hit in the head with a board. So that's what I suggest. Your partner resists? Of course they do. Just shut your mouth and become more loving. People don't resist real love much. They resist being told that they should change. Now, let's see. We've got several saved questions that we'll get to, but I want to address any active ones. John sent one earlier, and we'll get to that. Martha said, I had an interesting experience in job hunting last week. I took a job I didn't really want. Gee, I'll bet that worked out well. I shouldn't have formed a judgment already, but, that usually doesn't work out very happily. And then I'm assuming that this is Martha. No, I screwed up. It's Catherine. It's usually Martha. Catherine said, what I did was accept it when I knew it wasn't a good fit. A real love friend brought it to my attention that the person hiring me flattered me about my resume and cover letter. Ooh, what a smart thing to point out. We are so susceptible to flattery, aren't we? Somebody says, oh, you're so whatever. We're just sucked in by that. We're sucked in by any form of imitation love. Without knowing it, I bought into the imitation love and sold out when my intuition told me not to accept it. I started the job and hated it and had to quit. Thank goodness I had someone who could give me some insight that I was totally missing. Way to go. This imitation love thing is very subtle. Yeah, no joke. And if you don't realize that that's what's happening, you can sell yourself down the river for your whole life. Be it flattery, sex, money, power, whatever. Turns out I have an interview tomorrow for a job that is a very good match. Good for you. Good call and good recovery. Yeah, the whole idea of telling the truth about ourselves. There's two reasons to tell the truth. One is so that we can create opportunities for people to accept and love us as we are. Second reason is so that having told the truth, now we can make wiser choices. And that's what you've done here. And you probably felt the other experience also. As you told the truth about having sold out for imitation love, my guess is that you also felt more unconditionally accepted by the person who you told the truth to this wise person who had experience with real love. It's just a delightful thing to tell the truth. Whereas when you don't tell the truth, you're screwed all the time. You're alone, you're unloved, you make bad choices, and it just goes on, and then you're confused, and you don't know what's happening, and then you're doomed to repeat the process, and it just never ends. It's just miserable. John sent a question. He said, I just spent the week at my sister's house with her husband and 2 children, ages 4 and 7. Since I've been telling the truth about myself and understanding the real love principles better, I can actually hear differently. I mean, talk about an understatement. John does have a gift for that, by the way. Once we have been truthful about ourselves, we start to see everything differently. We start to see things around us, see other people's interactions in ways that would never have occurred to us before. We start to see emptiness and fear. We start to see getting and protecting behaviors constantly. Now, as you become more loving, you don't see getting and protecting behaviors like this. You don't go, oh, see, attacking. You don't do that. You don't go, oh, see, she's acting like a victim. No, that's not the point. You don't become critical of people. You don't become condescending. You just notice what people are doing. As long as I've been doing this, I see this around me everywhere. But I'm not consciously aware of it. I don't walk around going, oh, victim, yeah, getting a bit. No, I'm just aware that it exists. I mean, otherwise it would be a never-ending distraction. My goodness, you couldn't stand it. No, it's just a background noise. If I were, keeping track and score, I could, but ridiculous, because you also accept people at the same time, and you're aware that that's just the state of the world. Let's see. So John says, before real love, all of my sister's interactions with her husband and children, or vice versa, would have seemed normal. Yeah, isn't that hysterical? When everybody is doing something, then it does seem normal. But now, I hear an almost constant stream of I don't love you from all of them. And John's giving some examples. He says, it sounds like this. You make me so angry. I can't believe you did that. I have told you hundreds of times not to do that. You need to listen to your father. You need to listen to your mother. You have really let me down. I am so tired of this always happening. So I got to make sure John's here. Yeah, I love it. You can just hear the tone of voice in this, can't you? A good girl doesn't do that. I am the boss. What did you say to me? I don't understand this one. It says how to ask for that. I think there's a word missing. Tell so-and-so thank you. You don't treat your sister that way. This is not how you do that. You go to your room and think about how you have made me or your sister or someone else feel bad by your actions. Listen to the guilt just pile up here. Can't you do this one thing for me? More guilt. Why is it that I have to do X, Y, or Z? Oh, you're such a good girl. You make me so happy when you act like whatever. just all of the terrible things that we do to manipulate our children, either to do something for us or to manipulate them to not do something to us. And then John continues, I gave my sister and brother-in-law real love in marriage and real love in parenting for Christmas. Now you can imagine, since they're still behaving like this, whether they read the books. Clearly not. He says, she can't get past the point in your books where you say that she does not know how to love her husband or her children, and that our parents did not love us. Of course. Why can't she get past those points? Because she doesn't want to hear those points. Duh. When she reads that, what does she hear? She hears that she's a bad person and that she has done a wrong thing. She hears that she's made a mistake and she can't live with being wrong. Even though in the book it clearly says multiple times, don't feel guilty about this. This is just what you were taught to do. Don't waste time feeling bad. It says it over and over. It even says, now relax. Nothing wrong here. Nobody's trying to make you feel bad. She can't get past this. Her world is so stuck in her worth being connected to her being right that she just can't get past that. And, gee, understandably so, huh? Since that's kind of like where the whole world lives. That's the reason we're doing the PBS special. We think that people need to see live, on camera, people have it pointed out to them that they are wrong in front of millions of people, to see them admit that they're wrong and then go, wow, that I didn't die. It didn't kill me. To have them admit to each other that they're wrong. To watch them become happier when they're wrong. We think nothing else is going to work than that. So that's why we're doing this. So she's never really read past the first few pages. I know. I get it. And until she reads past the first few pages and realizes that she can be wrong and loved, she's never going to change. She tells me that she sees no change in my son. Of course. How could she admit that? If she admitted that she saw a change in your son, she'd have to admit that there was something in the principles. And then she'd have to change. You see? Then her whole house of cards would fall down. I now know that I can't be the one who makes her or anyone see the light of real love. So I tell her the truth about me, that I'm working on being more loving every day. Perfect. All you do is you tell her the truth about you. Bit by bit, she sees the example in you, and at some point in her life, when she feels sufficiently miserable, she's going to go, nothing's working. And at some point, she's going to go, wait a minute, John's happier. Where's that stinking book? Maybe I'll read that stupid book again. Do you know how many people have called me up and said, I read that book of yours after having had it for 5 years. Something happened in their lives, and finally that little seed that had been planted in their head 5 years ago began to sprout. The soil wasn't ready yet, that's all. But you've planted the seed. You just can't prepare the soil. You're not in charge of that job. Clear? There you go. So keep planting seeds. It's always our job to plant seeds. Everywhere I go, I plant seeds. But we're unnecessarily arrogant and unnecessarily make ourselves self-important when we think we're in charge of preparing the soil. That may take decades, and that's not our job. Let's see. So I tell her the truth about me. I work on being more loving. That part is freeing, but it's still tragic when I look at her family. They have the big house, the big cars. They can't see the imitation love foundation their lives are built on, or the fact that they will be passing this type of conditional love to their children. You're right. That's what they're doing. And it is sad. And yet, you know, right there with the sadness of it, I choose to live with the faith that someday they're going to get it. And we just don't know when. So I choose not to be sad. I lived in my own stupor and ignorance for decades and finally decided to learn something. So we can be sad or we can be faithful. I choose to be faithful that someday the soil will be prepared. So that's my choice. Otherwise, you walk around sad all the time, and I don't think we need to. Andy and Lori, realizing that mistakes are simply opportunities to learn a different way instead of measuring one's character flaws as we've been taught all our lives has been powerful for me and my clients. How can I help my coaching clients better grasp this liberating truth? Well, honey, how else are you going to learn? There isn't another way. So you ask your clients, ask them to describe any skill that they've got. Play baseball, play the piano, whatever. Pick a thing. Play the piano. How'd you learn? Did you make mistakes? Was there another way to learn? Do you regret? All right, so are you glad that you learned to play the piano? Yes. Did playing the piano require that you make mistakes? Yeah, it did. Was there another way to learn to play the piano without learning mistakes? No, there wasn't. If it's a guy, was there another way to learn to play baseball other than missing the ball? No. Or to play football without dropping some passes? No, there wasn't. So, by implication, do you regret dropping the ball? Are you following this logic here? Now pay attention, pea-brain, because if you regret dropping the ball or regret missing the ball when you were playing baseball, that means you regret learning the skill. Do you get it? You couldn't have learned without making the mistakes. So that means you can't be glad you learned the skill without also being glad that you made the mistakes. It's part of the learning. Well, so now let's follow the rest of this. It's the same with life. Now, there are times that I wish that when I made my mistakes, I didn't also hurt other people. I do. But that wasn't possible either. Because the only way for me to have made my mistakes without hurting other people would have been to have lived alone in solitary confinement. Actually, that's not true either. Even in solitary confinement, you hurt people by your absence and not communicating with them. So it would have been to have been born without a family, alone on Mars. You get it? Part of learning means you have to hurt other people. There isn't another way. Pain is the price we pay for the law of choice. It's the price we pay for learning. So you got to get this across to your clients. You say, so you show me another way to learn without there being pain and without making mistakes. Well, since there isn't one, then shut up. It's what we got to do. So if you want to learn and grow, then you're going to have to suffer, and so are the people around you. Don't know another way to do it. And when we screw up, we can apologize to the people around us, but, too bad. hate it. I've told my kids, gee, I hate it that I had to hurt you, but I didn't know another way at the time. And looking back, I don't know another way I could have done it either. Apparently God didn't know another way either. He would have set it up. And he was a pretty smart guy, so I don't know. Catherine and Martha. This is Martha now. I think you two do this just to confuse me. I was watching PBS. They're showing a new filmmaker redoing war stories in a different way. Somehow I guess I was supposed to be watching this because Germany, Japan, and Italy were portrayed. Even though a very small remark was made about Germany, the Germans, feeling they were victims, and of course the Holocaust follows, as well as fear of Japan, all the attacking, I'm not following this so far, not much difference regarding my attacking. I made a good, Hitler is wiping out my family. I got a lot of your enthusiasm out of this, but I wasn't smart enough to get the gist. Let's see. Anyway, I got that you've formed an association between the attacking done during World War II and your attacking, which was brilliant on your part. The attacking that's been done all through the history of mankind is pretty much the same, and gee, that part's a fact. And if you make your point so that I can get it better, you probably made the point great and I just missed it. Let me know. John, by the way, while I was there, my 7-year-old nephew jumped up in the chair, snuggled up to me, and sat there with me for about 15 minutes. He's never done that before. It gave me some hope that he sees the unconditional love that I work on giving to everyone. It was a great gift. Oh, are you joking? You think kids don't feel this? When I go into people's houses now, it is very common, like really common, for people to say to me, my cat or my dog or my child or my whatever, who never ever comes out when strangers come into the house, always comes out when you come into the house. I hear that all the time. People and animals feel unconditional love. No kidding. They do. So, yeah, your 7-year-old felt your unconditional love. Uh-huh. And in the old days, let me tell you, people's frightened animals did not come and sit in my lap. I would have been only too happy to roast their animals on a spit. Hey, Pleasanton. Good to have you here. Let's see. I had a pre-sent question. Where is it? Okay. Let's see if Dan is here. No. So we won't do that. Let me talk to you just for a little bit about playing. I went and visited my daughter and son-in-law and her 2 kids recently, and got to watch my grandson play football. And since then, I've been hearing reports about him playing. And I talked to him on the phone the other day. He's 5, I hope. He keeps getting older, and that makes you crazy because I get their ages wrong, but I think he's 5. And I was talking to him on the phone and asking him about his games. And apparently he's doing pretty well. He sacked the quarterback last week and ran a ball in for the touchdown, and for a touchdown, and he's wearing a mouth guard, which he thinks very cool at 5. You take this mouth guard and you heat it up in the water, and that can form it to your mouth. And then he's been running around in the parking lot at home, throwing the ball up in the air and then catching it and counting the number of times that he catches it. Now, the cool thing is this, and then he's been describing his practices. He's describing the touchdown and the tackling a guy and the practices and the throwing the ball up in the parking lot, and he describes all these activities in exactly the same tone of voice, with exactly the same enthusiasm. In fact, my daughter said that when he scored the touchdown and everybody in the stands stood up and cheered, he looked at them like, what is wrong with you people? He did. Like, that was no more fun for me than when I was in a parking lot throwing the ball up and counting the number of times that I caught the ball. It was the same amount of fun for me. So why are you all making a fuss of this? Is there something wrong with you all? Did you all just have ants bite your butts? Is that why you're standing up and cheering? He couldn't understand this. So my daughter explained to him the significance of a touchdown, and he's still going, yeah, and? So as he is explaining to me the touchdown, he's like going, so big deal. And I'm thinking, this is so cool. Because he's enjoying the game of football, and the praise and the glory mean absolutely nothing to him. I said, so you scored a touchdown? Yeah, huh? And you tackled the quarterback? And he said, yeah, huh? And he said, and in the parking lot, I threw the ball up and down, and I caught it, I don't remember what he said, 8 times in a row. He was absolutely thrilled that he'd caught it 8 times in a row, whereas the time before that, it had only been 5 times in a row. He was improving his skill. He thought that was just really neat. Whereas running the ball in for a touchdown, see, was just a one-time event. Like, so what? I just was thrilled to death that nobody has poisoned this kid with the glory of getting everybody's praise yet. How cool is that, huh? And my daughter has no intention of poisoning him with praise either. She and her husband are like about that too. So I hope that people around him don't manage to poison him with praise either. Wouldn't the world be a different place if we didn't do that, huh? Pleasanton Group. You had talked about saying thank you previously, and that it's often not sincere. No joke, huh? It's kind of a social custom, really. Should I teach my children to say thank you to others? No, you don't. As soon as you say you should say thank you, now you're forcing them to do something. Forced gratitude is worthless. Now, I would teach my children, and I did teach my children, that you tell your children, there are many people that if you don't say thank you, will be irritated at you. Because that's the way our society runs. Our society runs on a mill of imitation love. It does. And so I'm going to tell you straight out that most people in our society, that if they do something for you, if you don't say thank you, they will get you back. They will be irritated at you. They'll be angry. So I suggest to you that because the price is so high in our society for not saying thank you, it is my personal suggestion that if somebody does something for you out in public, I suggest to you that on the whole, you would be wise to do it. because the price is unnecessarily high if you don't. I'll never make you. Never. Not a chance will I ever say to you, you better go say thank you. I'm just telling you that you will notice that the price will be high if you don't. So you observe, you watch, and you'll discover that you'll get along better with people, and it will just be unnecessarily difficult for you if you don't. And my children discovered that. So, for example, my children at school discovered that they ran into not very many. I'd ask Mike right now, but it isn't that important. But they ran into one or two teachers who insisted on the, you better say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And so they would come home and say, do I have to say yes, sir, yes, ma'am? And I'd say, no, you don't. It is not required. It's not a law. And I'm surely never going to make you say yes, sir, yes, ma'am. But you have to evaluate the price in your head, kid. So you can make an issue out of it, and you can say, I'm not going to say it. And you know what? You don't have to. And I'll back you. I'll say, he can do whatever he wants to. But is it worth it? Are you willing to bleed over this one? Or are you going to give in on this one and say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and save your bullets for something that matters? I don't know. You're going to have to figure that out yourself. And I can remember that some of them went one way and some of them went another. But see, now look what you've done for your child. You have shown them wisdom. You've shown them consequences. You've helped work something out for them, and you've given them a choice. Oh, man, that's a loving parental thing to do. As opposed to, no, just do this. Just do that. That's not really teaching them a skill. That's just making them do something. It's making them follow you. That's not a skill that's going to serve them well in life. Making sense to you? Virginia says, what's a good way to teach gratitude? Oh, easy. Love them. If you love a child, unconditionally love a child, that child will grow up feeling grateful. Really. Now, every once in a while, if you unconditionally love a child and a child doesn't appear to be grateful, then you can teach lessons. Actually, you should be teaching these lessons anyway. We taught lessons we had family meetings every day of the week for years. And we taught lessons on gratitude. And what we taught our children was there's a huge difference between being grateful for something and being grateful to somebody. So, for example, we taught them, if you are grateful for the things around you, if you are grateful for your home, if you are grateful for the food you eat, if you're grateful for the clothes on your back, if you're grateful for the safety you enjoy, if you're grateful for the freedoms you enjoy in this country, if you're grateful for what you have, the result of being grateful is greater joy. The joy you experience in your life will be magnified manyfold. And we would make that point sometimes when a child, for example, would be being irritated. Well, I don't have... And so what we would say is, so at this moment, are you feeling grateful for what you have? Or are you being whiny and a victim about what you don't have? And we would just ask that question and then stop and say, tell you what, I'll come back in a few minutes and I'll let you reflect on the answer to that question, and we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Gratitude is a huge teacher. So that's what being grateful for teaches a child. Whereas if you require a child to be grateful to you, if you say to a child, now, thank me, when you give a child something, you say, now, what do you say? Be grateful to you. Now what do you teach a child? You teach a child to feel obligated. You feel a child to feel burdened. Those are sucky, rotten, nasty feelings. That doesn't make a child feel happy at all. You don't want a child who feels obligated and burdened. Doesn't increase their joy a bit. So that's how you teach gratitude. Let me know if that helps. Or don't. Whatever you want. Pleasanton. For the first time in a long time, I just had a meltdown with my son over something that had nothing to do with him. We all have those. I've been having a consequence of him doing some kind of chore for me when he's disrespectful to me. So I said that I would do one of his chores for him since I was disrespectful to him. Does that make sense, or am I off track? Actually, it's kind of off track that when he's disrespectful, that you've been having him do a chore for you. Because disrespect means that he's unloving. And a natural consequence of him being unloving to you isn't really to do a chore for you. It's simply to teach him. In fact, a natural consequence of his being unloving toward you would be for you to be loving toward him. You following this? If he's being unloving toward you, then that means he's not feeling loved by you. So the natural thing to do would be for you to be more loving toward him. A natural consequence of his not doing a chore would be for him to do 2 chores. But there's no natural consequence for disrespect. Disrespect is about love. So doing a chore is not a natural consequence of not being loving. Am I helping you there? In fact, that may be why he's resentful about it. Martha said, would you review believing the soil is being tilled again rather than being sad? I seem to choose sadness over many things. What is sadness? Victim, I'm sure. Any more you can say about that? I feel I'm pretty much through my sister's suicide, and in fact, I think very little about it, but being sad all last year became a way of life for a long time. And I'm having some trouble not choosing sadness on all sorts of things. Feeling sad for a brief time is very natural. Sadness is a natural result of something being taken from us or something not being in its natural state of joy. I get that. Someone close to us dying. Someone having their happiness taken from them. But when our sadness continues past a short period of time, what sadness reflects is a lack of faith. A lack of faith that joy will win. That love really is the most powerful force in the universe. Once we believe that love really is the greatest power in the universe, why would we stay sad? Ever. Example. I was on the beach in South Carolina, and I'm watching these kids build a sandcastle. And they're building it. You've all been on beaches. There's the wide swath. Sorry, I've got something in my throat and I have to keep clearing it every few seconds. There's the wide swath of beach. You got the surf here, and what do you call it? The surf. And then there's the wide swath of beach that's nice and smooth. And then there's the part where there's all the, crud, the driftwood and the stuff. So obviously, the difference between the surf and where all the dirt and stuff is, that's the difference between, that's as high as the tide usually gets. Because that's where it deposits all of its stuff at high tide, and then it goes back out, and then eventually the surf, wherever it is, it eventually gets up to there, deposits all its stuff, and then it goes back out again. So here are these kids building their little sandcastle somewhere between the surf and the high tide. So you know that eventually the tide's going to come in, and it's going to knock out their sandcastle. You know this. But the kids don't. And so they're building this sandcastle, and as I'm going by, I'm watching these kids. They are having such a good time. And I'm thinking, I would love to participate in building this sandcastle. It just looks so fun. So I asked them if I could help. They said, sure. So I did. And it was getting pretty big, for little kids. I mean, it's getting like the size of my desk here. It's big. And it's getting higher, and, well, the surf's creeping in. Tide's coming in. And the tide starts, a few of the waves start lapping at the edges of their castle. And they're getting a little worried. So they start building a wall around their sandcastle. Well, we all know where this story's going, don't we? So they're going, let's build a higher wall. And so I'm helping them build a higher wall, knowing, of course, what's going to happen. So the surf comes in more and more, and we're building a higher and higher wall. And I'm thinking, so the surf comes in, and the wall is higher. Well, eventually the surf comes in more and more, no matter what we do. The waves come in, and it knocks down the wall, and it knocks down the castle. And these are little kids. I mean, they're, I don't know, 6 to 8 maybe. And, they're crying, oh, our sandcastle, boo. And they're sad because what? In that brief moment, they think that they can't be happy while their sandcastle is being destroyed. Right? That's the only reason you'd cry. Because for a brief moment, you have no faith that you could be happy while this is going on. Because your perspective is only this long. That's as far as they can see. Am I sad? No. Because I can see beyond the destruction of their sandcastle. I know that after the sandcastle is gone, that they're going to get over it like in a few minutes, and they're going to go off and splash in the waves, and they're going to go do something else, and this is going to be nothing, right? We're not a whole lot more faithful than these little kids. All of the supposedly sad events that occur in our lives are really very much like that, aren't they? The tide comes in and splashes at the edges of the little supposedly big events in our lives, the castles in our lives, and tears them down, and then so what? Then we move on and we create another castle, and we'll be fine. Because real love carries through it all and is the most single important thing. And all the other little things are just little castles that don't really mean very much. And so people are born and people die and stuff happens, and love is the thing. And when we get that, well, all the other little stuff just doesn't matter as much. And when we get that, then sadness lasts for little moments. And we're smarter than the little kids in the sandcastles on the beach in South Carolina. My 16-year-old daughter is a junior in high school. She's decided that she will not be part of a creative thinking group that she's been in for the past 3 years. This team has placed in the top 3 in the global competition for the past 3 years and has been a great extracurricular for her college applications. She has great aspirations for college, but has no extracurricular going for her junior year. Should we encourage her to continue with this or just keep our mouths shut? I think, is this a separate thing? My husband has decided against coming. This must be a separate question. This is a separate question. All right. So what you do is you control what she does. You're doomed. But you do have a right, in fact, an obligation as a parent, to love and teach. So what you do is you describe to children, you describe the situation and the consequences. That's all you do. You don't control them. I just went through this with a parent recently. So you say to the daughter, in getting into college, first thing you do is you sit down with your daughter and you say to her straight out, you say, I am not going to control what you do. And when you say that, she's going to instantly listen to you 500% better. Whereas if you sit down and you say, okay, let's go over your decision. If you say it that way, she's going to become deaf and not listen to you. No kidding. Because she thinks you're going to try to influence her decision. Don't do it. If you do it, you're screwed, so is she. So you sit down and you say, you get to make your own choice. All I would like to do is discuss it and go over the various merits and possible disadvantages of one decision versus another. And so you just say, you get to do whatever you want to do. You may decide to become the greatest custodian in the world. You may decide to sweep floors at the local Toyota plant. I don't know. If you decide to go to college, these extracurricular activities matter hugely to these people. That may be stupid, but that's what they look at. So this particular activity that you've been in is a real asset. Really is. It matters to them. They would look at this and go, woo-hoo. So if you continue with that, it will be a real plus on your transcript. If you drop out of it, it could be a significant disadvantage. The fact that you've been in it up to now would still be a good thing. You could say, I was in it from year blank to blank, but they might wonder why it was that you dropped out of it up to your junior year. I'm just saying they will wonder why. That's all I'm telling you. If you continue with it through your senior year, they'll dig that. That'll be an advantage. So I guess I'm asking, if you decide to drop it, do you have like something else you're going to replace it with? Do you see the disadvantage of discontinuing it? I'm only discussing it with you. So there we are. Now we're discussing it. If you discuss it like that, you may learn some things. She may decide to continue. At least you're going to have a discussion with your child. Whereas if you go into influencer, you're dead. It could be a real learning experience for both of you. So next Tuesday, come back and we will have a scintillating discussion on a broad variety of subjects. You guys have had some wonderful questions tonight. Send me questions ahead of time, and that's also greatly facilitates our discussion. And I look forward to seeing you 1 week from today, to the hour. Love y'all.